Good afternoon, everyone. Professor Laxman Watwala, founder and president of CPM Sri Lanka. Our chief guest today, and my dear friend, Vish Govindasamy. Governing council members, advisory council members, and membership committee members of CPM Sri Lanka. Honorary fellowship recipients, dear fellows, members, associates of CPM Sri Lanka, and dear invitees, and my dear friends. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this prestigious event. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all this evening when you share this wonderful moment of your life. I was requested to talk on choices leaders will have to make to drive digital acceleration and leadership practices in time of anxiety. Now, I'm not going to talk about anxieties that Sri Lankan people face today because that itself is a separate topic, and I would not be able to cover it within the timeline that is given to me. However, I would like to break down and narrate my topic into multiple smaller topics. First, we will need to understand what needs to be accelerated in digital, and then we can talk about leadership practices and what we need to do on boosting digital economy. Now, I understand from Dilshan, majority of the CPM members are representing accounting, banking, and finance industry, right? So, therefore, often when we talk about digital transformation, we narrow it down to digital payments, obviously, instead of talking about the overall picture of digital. And I'm no difference. I represent the payments industry, and I'll be very biased. And my conversation also will be around the digital payments and digital ecosystem in Sri Lanka. But also, I would like to highlight certain statistics and numbers to show you the strange relationship or the differences between digital infrastructure growth versus digital payment growth in Sri Lanka. Now, but first, let's see where the world moves in terms of digital as well as digital payments. Now, as you know, many tech companies, if you look at early 90s, used to be banking and other manufacturing companies which had the market capitalization globally. But if you look at today, the market capitalization is led by all the tech companies in the world. Today, if you look at the statistics says 98% of the global economy is impacted by digitization, affected by digitization. Now, to give you certain statistics, today in the world, 86% of the consumers are using smartphones. And we see about 72% of the consumers today access internet through their mobile. And our research says by 2025, which is not so far from today, it's like 2 years from today, or 3 years if you look at 2023 as well, we foresee about 50% of the retail purchases would be done online. And probably my assumption is we will reach that point well before 2025. Now, that's the digital infrastructure and the infrastructure growth. But let's look at the financial side as well. Now, in the world, if you look at the last year, we see about 42% decline in usage of cash, which is not at all representing the situation in Sri Lanka. And we have seen about 64% of consumers trying at least one new payment method, emerging payment method digitally in the world during last 1 year. Now, that statistic says globally, the digital infrastructure is growing, and also digital payments are also growing in the same phase. Now, let's look at the Sri Lankan context. Now, in Sri Lanka, we claim to have more than 150% mobile penetration with a significant share of smartphone penetration as well. We say we have about 8 million or more than 8 million social media users in Sri Lanka, out of which 99% of them are using their mobile phone to access the social media, which means we have a very, very decent population of a community which is smartphone literate. I just came up with that word, smartphone literate, because they can use their smartphone to, do their day-to-day services and access their social media, etc., and use the mobile apps introduced by different corporates. However, statistically, in Sri Lanka, less than 6% of the population uses online payments or other e-commerce to purchase their whatever the items that they wanted to have. We saw a slight growth during COVID times, but that was that. Since then, it was again stabilized. Point I'm trying to say is, we will have a decent digital infrastructure, but the usage of that decent digital infrastructure for digital payments is a question. Now, same applies to card industry as well. Now, we have in the payment card industry, which I represent, we have 18 million debit cards today in Sri Lanka, and we have over 2 million credit cards today in Sri Lanka. Now, even though we have 18 million debit cards, the usage of debit cards is a question, because if you look at the statistics, the reality is average debit card is used only 2 times a quarter. Now, when you go to, you are probably from urban areas, and you probably would experience when you especially walk into a supermarket, there are so many transactions happening in POS terminals. But the reality is only a debit card has only 2 transactions a quarter. Same applies to POS terminals as well, right? Point of machine terminals. Whenever you go to supermarket, you see these terminals which does the electronic transactions. And if you are from an urban area, you see there are so many transactions happening, and you see the digital economy must be doing really good. If you look at Sri Lankan statistics, average POS terminal, point of sale terminal, does only 4 transactions a day, right? Now that is shocking, right? Because that's when I saw these statistics for the first time, I was like, this cannot be true, but that's what a statistic says. Now, what I'm trying to again say is, the decent digital infrastructure that we have is not being utilized for digital payments. So I can keep on going with so many examples to showcase what we have and how underutilized the infrastructure is. I can give you one more example. It's no secret we had a fuel crisis, right? I'm not saying the fuel crisis is over. We'll still have the fuel crisis. But to manage the fuel crisis that we had, there was a QR system implemented. Now, because of the sheer crisis that we had, during the very first few days, the publication says, during the very first few days, there were 6 million active users into this fuel QR system. Now, Central Bank of Sri Lanka was trying to implement a QR system, which is similar to the same concept, to do electronic payments, which is a low-cost electronic payment mechanism. And Central Bank was trying to push this hard to enable this bottom-of-the-pyramid merchant ecosystem. And today, we have over 320,000 QR codes or QR merchants, and they don't do more than 320,000 transactions a quarter, which means there are so many QR merchants, we call it Lanka QR merchants, those who don't do even a single transaction a day. So if you're a bank, if you're a financial institution, you spend so much of money to go to a merchant, put a QR, train them, spend money. Now you enable the merchant to accept payments digitally, but customers don't initiate, neither the merchant is requesting for that digital payment. The point that I'm trying to make is, despite how the world is moving, where the digital infrastructure grows and the digital payments are growing, Sri Lanka has a major disconnect, or rather a unique problem, where we are not using our digital infrastructure to grow our digital payments ecosystem. Now, our digital economy is around less than 5%, around 4.7%, which is significantly lower than even our neighboring countries, other developing countries, or even our neighboring countries like India and Maldives. I represent Maldives as a country manager as well for my company. And Maldives statistics says in Maldives, 9 out of 10 transactions are digitally initiated. And in Sri Lanka, it's less than 5%, which is a little sad. Now, this low adoption of digital economy instruments and the sheer size of the economy is a major turn down for these foreign investors to come and invest in Sri Lanka, because there is no point of pushing entities like PayPal to come to Sri Lanka unless we get together and ensure that the digital economy is sizable for a foreign investor to come to Sri Lanka and invest in this market. Now, in this context, since I have to talk about the leadership initiatives that we have to take, I would like to highlight 5 areas, or rather, I would like to propose 5 areas which country can adopt to overcome certain challenges that we face in terms of pushing the digital payments. First is the need of empowering SMEs and MSMEs. Now, in Sri Lanka, over 90% of the establishments in Sri Lanka are representing SMEs and MSME sector. And if you look at this sector, it accounts to over 80% of the Sri Lanka's economy, and it contributes more than 52% to the country's GDP. Now, that really says to reach the world online, reach the world digitally. The second one is to enable them with certain equipments to accept payments digitally. Second area is to adopt open loop technology for public transportation. Now, this is a topic that we've been talking for a long time. Why I put this as a strategically important area? Now, I spoke about the Sri Lankan payments industry and the fact that we have 18 million debit cards, which is not being used. We see so many people having debit cards. They take a tuk-tuk, go to an ATM, withdraw cash, go to demo, and then buy something by using that cash. Instead, they could have simply used the payment card to purchase that item, right? That's a cost, and there's an education that needs to be done in the country. Now, to do that, we have seen globally, the moment that you implement open loop for transit is where you can use your existing bank card to travel within the country. Now, the world is moving away from systems where they had to top up a specific card and then use it for public transit. Now, the world is increasingly adopting, enabling the usage of open loop technology. Open loop technology means you are using your existing bank card to travel in the bus or the railway or whatever the transport mechanism that you are using. Now, globally, statistically, we have seen the moment that you enable that, people will pull out their payment card to make the payment for public transportation, and naturally, they will use the same payment instrument in other payments as well. Now, that will increase digital payments significantly, and in return, it will help the country to save a lot of money. Third area is to expand the low-cost acceptance methods via SoftPOS and Lanka QR. Now, as I explained earlier, we have huge amount of SMEs and MSMEs in the country, and it is essential to build this low-cost acceptance infrastructure that will enable merchants to accept payments digitally. Now, when I say low-cost payment acceptor methods, a lot of people can get this confused with the low economics payment systems. So low economics payment systems and the low cost payment systems are two different things. Low economics is where whenever you do a transaction, cost of that particular transaction is low. Low cost payment acceptance method is the enablement effort that you take to empower a merchant to accept payment digitally, the cost of that is low. Now, low economics, I always say this in many forums, low economics could be a real disaster for the country if you really look at it, specifically for a country like Sri Lanka. Because Sri Lanka, if you look at, I've told you the statistics, we have 4 transactions in a POS terminal, we have 2 transactions, a POS terminal in a day, we have 2 transactions by using a debit card. And if you have low economics, the ecosystems that will empower the startups, fintechs, banks, merchants, and other enablers in the ecosystem will not earn anything out of the transactions. And then they'll be discouraged to expand the ecosystem. Now, when I have this conversation with policymakers in Sri Lanka, they try to compare us with India most of the time. Now, in India, if you put up a QR or a normal POS terminal, there are thousands of transactions happens at that particular merchant. So you can definitely afford low economics at that ecosystem. But in Sri Lanka, it is very difficult to do that. So we have to be very mindful when we expand the digital ecosystem to ensure the profitability of individual stakeholders in these ecosystems. 4th area is the importance of moving for open banking. Now, open banking is nothing but enabling fintechs and third-party players to come to a financial services ecosystem with the consent of the end user by leveraging the financial services system in a country. Now, open banking framework in Sri Lanka would provide a governance structure to facilitate customer consent-based online sharing of financial data with financial service providers by using APIs, etc. Right? By enabling that, what you will do is you will essentially empower the fintechs, startups, and very small entities to participate in the digital payments ecosystem or the overall digital ecosystem itself to uplift the digital economy. 5th area and the last area that I want to highlight is the harnessing of blockchain as a technology enabler. Now, blockchain is becoming a bit of a taboo word because a lot of people try to associate blockchain with cryptocurrencies. Now, cryptocurrencies is a separate topic. However, we have to educate ourselves on the differences between the words like cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and blockchain itself. Blockchain as a technology is a foolproof technology, and the power of that technology can be used in so many applications beyond even payments. Can we get our land registry ecosystem into a blockchain network, which would be completely foolproof? Can we enable local artists to do non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and then compete in the world to bring dollars to the country? So by empowering this, by empowering younger communities to go ahead to the world with blockchain technology is something that we have to initiate in this country. Now, to do this, I would like to highlight 2 important factors. One is a need of a clear long-term policy for national digital strategy, which we don't have in this country at this moment of time, which is very important. Somebody in this country has to come up and drive a national digital strategy, which would not change based on the political regime or political arenas. Secondly, it is important to have more awareness amongst the population. And this is where I believe leaders like you will come forward to help the digital economy to grow, which is a key contributor to the process of recovery of the current state that we are in. And I really believe that you would do your best with the capabilities and the knowledge that you have to make people aware of the certain possibilities where they can enable through the digital ecosystem. So what we all need today to the country is humble professional managers with entrepreneurial mindset. I'll take 2 minutes to explain that. Entrepreneurial mindset is where we have so many managers today, in corporate I meet, so many managers, and they work in their silos. They say, I am doing only this, and if you want to do something in this particular area, please come to me, otherwise I am not a generalist. But we need people, whether you are representing the government sector, whether you are representing the private sector, or whether you are doing your own thing, you have to run your, whatever the area, as if you are running your own business. That's what I'm saying, that you need the entrepreneurial mindset. And then you need humble professional managers. Why I say humble professional managers? Today, we, on 2 areas again. One, sometimes whenever we speak about innovation, a lot of people that I meet talk about our history and how we have done in the history in terms of 5,000 years or whatever beyond that. And then they say, we have been doing this for a long, long time, there's no need of us doing it again, right? But the world has moved way beyond. That's one part of not being humble. The other part of not being humble is, as a professional manager, I always say, if you can be the most senior person in your corporate, but if you can't treat the most junior person seated next to you, I don't think you are suitable to become a professional manager. So all I request you to be is a humble professional manager with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I congratulate you again, and I thank you very much for inviting me as a keynote speaker tonight. Thank you very much.